Hello, I'm back for another review, this time on the Beast Link Gate. As you see, I have the Grega version, and it came in this box, though I doubt anybody really cares. They actually fit in there nicely. At any rate, decent sized box and decent sized gate. It works with this game and pretty much the other game too with Falzar, because the gate's pretty much the same no matter what version you get. At any rate, very nice game. I bought the thing brand new, but I got it used. So be careful when buying from people. You will get scammed occasionally. Game still works though. Alright, in order to use the gate, you have to hook it up to a Game Boy Advance SP or Game Boy Advance. And it pretty much hooks in just like any Versus thing. You put the thing on backwards like this, and it hooks in. Now that looks pretty bad, so they decided to invent a feature to allow it to work with the SP. Just pull up, and it rotates around. You're still stuck with the screws there, but it works. Also, these things can be used when releasing it, as well as this thing can be removed. You can put in another one in its place. Now, as for the actual functions of the gate, you may get a bit of a glare from the Game Boy, but it doesn't really matter because that's not what I'm focusing on. Okay, after you beat the final boss in the game, you're given the option to use this machine. This isn't available in the English version. Once you select it, blah 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 blah, you can choose to slot in a chip. Now, of course, I'm going to use normal Rockman because otherwise, well, it just wouldn't be as fun. And Neto is happy to see Rockman. So now there's normal Rockman and the Beast Gate icon right up there on the top of the screen. And once you remove that thing, you can switch back to Beast Out Rockman, which is set as your default. So now you are eternally in Beast Out. As you can see. That's just the effect of the gate. Or you can switch back to normal Rockman. Normal Rockman has levels. He's currently level 1, his base stats are 1000 hit points, and of course he has decent stats there because I managed to put those in myself. In other words, you can use Navi Cust on this guy. Which means normal Rockman, once his base health is raised to 1800 hit points, is pretty much really powerful, minus the fact that he can't beast out. Now the fun doesn't stop there because I have some other Navi tips. Erase Man, or rather Killer Man, as he really should be called, and Slash Man, and you can do them. And of course, he's level 4 because I bought it used, and I haven't not bothered to level him up yet. And then there's Killer Man, who is also level 4. And you have to switch back to Beast Out Rockman every time. And he's level 4 as well. That's the end of his story. Also, another thing, Dark Blues, my last Navi chip, with the exception of Tomahawk Man, which does not work with this game. Now I'm going to demonstrate it, and he goes to the gate. And it doesn't register that he even exists. Or you can slide in Dark Blues. And he does register, so you get to use Dark Blues, right? No, you get to use normal blues. And he's level 1 because I haven't bothered to level him up. I got him brand new in this handy packet. $20, not a bad deal on eBay. Okay, so now we should go off on a little haphazard adventure to show off the wonders of the Beastlink Gate by engaging myself in Mortal Kombat. Before I continue, I feel the need to point out a few things. That off to the side. Link chips have very specific functions. You can only use certain chips once, like the recovery chip. You can only use this recovery 200 once. However, you can use other recovery chips in addition, like this recovery 80. Furthermore, some chips just don't work well, like this Guardian, you can only use it once. That's because it's typically referred to as a Mega Class chip in the other games, and thus it, as well as Super Vulcan, and in addition Neo Variable Sword, can only be used once per battle. However, you can continue using them afterwards. Then, of course, Mega Class chips, the rules are the same. The Select Man SP, I can only use it once. Of course, since its attack power is maxed out thanks to my records, it's still pretty powerful. Then finally, there are Giga Class chips like this Dark Bug Frag Sword and Colonel Army. You can only use them once, and they're interchangeable within games, so you can use a different game's Giga chips as your own. Very handy. Also, one of my favorite things, this Invis chip. Very powerful chip. You can use it up to 3 times, just like any other regular standard chip. So you can use it 3 times, you can use this 3 times, and my favorite thing is this Elect Dragon. Normally you can only have 2 of them in your folder. You can use this chip 3 times, which means you can use the Elect Dragon 5 times in one battle if you really wanted to. Well, that's it about the chips, so I think we should try them out now. Hi, I will battle you, Kazakh Decoy. Okay. It's personal now, and his health is over twice mine. So this will end badly. Also, once you do a Navi, you have their standard attack right there. That's just Step Sword. Also, any Navi customizations you might have made, like Chip Shuffle, do not appear, so you can't use them as an option. So in other words, I'm pretty much in trouble here. However, you can do Shield. It is rather difficult, when you're recording at least. But as you can see, the gauge is filling up. Now at this point, it is turned yellow. That means that I can use one standard chip. As I'm about to get hit by that guy and I have low health, I may choose to use a recover at this rate. However, I'm going to use one chip that you can only use once per battle, and that's Anti-Sword for obvious reasons. Having used the chip, the gauge proceeds to go down. It will fill back up naturally. However, if it reaches a certain point, the fast gauge is pretty much decreased to barely anything, and is pretty much useless. So I'm going to demonstrate Neo Variable Sword, which is probably the best chip to have like this. Very handy chip. Dealt a ton of damage rather quickly. Next is Super Vulcan, and you actually move whenever you insert a chip like that. Now I'm going to demonstrate a Mega Class chip, my personal favorite. Actually cancel that. I'm going to do something different instead. This is an arm change chip. Once I put this chip in, his charge shot will change to a fiery punch. This punch deals about 100 damage no matter what, and it's rather handy. And it can be used for unlimited counters. Observe. Although my counters aren't very good. Now I have sufficient gauge, having wasted my time, life, and health. So, it's Colonel Army. Having done its usual round of damage, I think it's time to finish this fight. So I'm going to go into defensive mode and show off my favorite thing. Invis. Left 2. You can use this chip a couple more times if needed. And I had that chip from the beginning. Also, once the gauge fills up like that, it can go over. Observe. Aside from the fact that my health is doing rather good. Now I still have gauge at this point, because the gauge had spilled over earlier. Thankfully, I'm facing a rather stupid opponent. Now, for the Mega Class chip, I'm going to use my personal favorite, because I think it's so incredibly useful to have more than one of these. Now we're back up to speed, and I'm going to finish with one of my favorites. Golem hit 3. Aside from the terrible job I just did, that was rather fun. So that's the basic functions of the gate. As for my chips themselves, I'll go ahead and review all of them in a different review. But for now, this is Ultimate XXA. Subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. The usual ending, the usual greeting. Goodbye.